episode of Iconic Freedom, the formula. We are setting a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of our choices, and the ability to respond to those choices. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. And today we continue the series of forensics of virtue signaling, but today with a special guest star, it is the forensic of epic virtue signaling. Check this out.
Folks, I'm sure by now you've heard the news. Wait, let me just, do I have it? Oh no, I already took it. Sorry. Someone gave me the man card, gave me like an actual man card one day. Like it's a little, looks like a credit card, kind of a joke, obviously. So let me just turn that in right now because this may be a little bit emotional, and let me apologize in advance. And ladies and gentlemen, I told you, you see, it's hard for me. I'm going to accept the role proudly, and forget like money and all that other crap. That doesn't gives a damn about any of that stuff. We'll figure that out. Folks, we met. I don't know if you know the story. It's certainly not my autobiography today, but we met just a couple of weeks before 9/11. She said on her first date that she knew I was something special, which I didn't think I was anything special back then, but I guess she did. It's going to hurt to leave. I didn't plan on this. I didn't plan on a lot of things, but I want you to know it is the honor of my lifetime. And I hope I'm making a plea to you all personally. I hope you're not angry or upset at me for making this decision.
Well, I hardly even know where to begin, to be honest. Oh my gosh. I mean, the self-righteousness, the self-deprecating, the image building, the ego tripping, the self-esteem looking for validation outside of himself. I mean, it's just, it's just breathtaking. I mean, you were listening to like 2 minutes of his show from Monday, his podcast, after he had been announced that he's the deputy director of the FBI. One of the things that people who virtue signal, one of the things that they do is that they signal how virtuous they are. And they lay it out for you, they enumerate all the ways that they are virtuous by their actions, by the words that they're saying. It's like, look what I did, look who I am. And I just think it's remarkable to watch it. Should we be able to see what a good person you are, or do you have to tell us? And therein lies the difference. But it's very interesting because he has this whole theme going on. A couple of things he talks about all the time. First of all, he believes, as Jordan Peterson does, that all life is suffering. And he has made this very clear that this is one of his mantras and this is something he believes in. Okay, well, there is no virtue in suffering, but apparently he thinks so. So is he suffering because he took the job, or is he suffering because he's leaving his podcast? Whoever knows what the self-interest is? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? So the other piece of it that I think is really fascinating is that he's sitting there droning on and on about, how sad how tough this is for him. Folks, okay, he also likes to go on and on about, we're not emotional here. We only bring the facts. That's all we want to talk about. We're not emotional about it. We're just talking about the facts. Okay, I've listened to his show for quite a while. There was more than a year that I didn't listen to his show. Actually, I think it was more closer to 2 years. He does like Sean Hannity does, that I pointed out last week, but he does it on steroids. And it's very interesting. Maybe he is on steroids. He's not, obviously. But, in comparatively speaking, between him and Sean Hannity and their workouts, I would imagine it's probably Dan Bongino, who's the hardcore workout guy. Anyway, I digress. The idea that he is sitting there and I love how he sits there and says, I don't know if you know how Paula and I met, this show isn't my autobiography. And then he launches into his autobiography. He will sit there and say, who cares about money or any of the rest of that? And then he sits there and talks about money. He sat there and did it today. He's just a contradiction of so many things. The piece that I hope you take away from this is that you can, and I'm not joking, this is one podcast, and I didn't even do all of it. I've got another section that I'm getting ready to play for you that is completely different from this one. It is unbelievable how much this guy goes on and on about this stuff. I was talking to a friend one time, and, we came up with understanding he's the kind of guy that will witness something going on, and then he'll run and tell everybody. He won't do anything. He'll just run and tell everybody. So, I think it's very funny that he's sitting there saying, people got to step up, and I'm ready to step up, and who's next, and blah, blah, blah. But there is a great deal of him going on and trying to image build. You're going to hear it in these later clips where, he keeps apologizing to people. I hope you're not going to be mad at me. And what is a person doing when they're doing that? They're trying to elicit some sort of a response from you. Oh, no, Dan, no, we're good with it. No, this is what you should do. No, you're a patriot, blah, 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 blah. It's just so remarkable to me. But all of these things that I talk about, the self-deprecating, the image building, the ego tripping, the self-esteem, the self-righteousness, it's all about not owning your choices. And the fact that this guy, for, whatever it is that he has done in life or continues to do or will do in the future, this guy does not have manageability over his emotions. You can clearly look at him and see that he's a very angry guy. Even when he's smiling, it's just wow, dude, you are wound up tight. Amazingly tight. And the anger that comes from him at times, that is not the constitution of an individual who has his life together, who understands responsibility and accountability. He might understand those words, but he has not integrated this into his life. And when you are around people, this is the piece that I hope you're able to take away from this byproduct of listening to all of this, is these people are in your life. These people are in your life. They're at your work. They're in your relationships. For all I know, they're in your family. But they're constantly playing this game where they're back and forth, push and pull. I want to go. No, I don't want to go. And, that kind of stuff. And the self-deprecating, I hope you're not going to be mad at me. Wowsy, wowsy, woo-woo. Trying to get people, again, to say, oh, no, we love you, Dan. And then I love the comment about, the money, who cares about the money? Yeah, I'm sure you say that when you have it. But how about all the people that don't and that are still working their tails off? But it's just such a flippant, comment to be making. Oh, well, yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm sure with your tens of millions of dollars that you have in the bank, you'll figure it out. I don't think you're going to be hurting at all. Somebody had posted on X that I think they estimated he earned about $24 million last year. Of course, I don't know how much of that goes to his business and all the rest of that, but that's just last year. We're not even talking about the other years. It's just so interesting to me. So I hope that beginning clip of all of that shenanigans starts to highlight what this epic virtue signaling is, where you won't own your choices in life. You won't be accountable for your choices. You will passionately and angrily try to say that that's who you are, but you're not. Because everything that comes out of your mouth is emotional. You're unable to manage yourself. You are live on a podcast with millions of people listening, and you're unable to handle some good news and to be able to convey that to your audience. I mean, he doesn't even understand that all relationships end. It's like, I don't know if anybody ever told him that, but they probably should help him out and go, hey, dude, all relationships end. The one with Paula, the one with your girls, the one with your podcast, eventually the one with the president. I mean, it's an amazing thing to watch. And I heard this podcast. I just couldn't believe it. And it was very funny because I did the podcast on Sean Hannity last weekend, but I was wanting to do I wanted to combine it between Sean Hannity and Dan Bongino. But I listened to two of his podcasts, his Thursday and Friday, and I didn't hear any of it, which made me think, did somebody tell him, knock it off, buddy, just get to the facts, tell the story. But the fact that he gets so angry, these are red flags, folks. I don't know how long he's going to, last in this job with Kash Patel, Pam Bondi. I have no idea. But I'll tell you, if he loses it with them, like I have seen him lose it on his show, I don't think he's going to be there very long. So he might not have to say goodbye for too long to his audience. Okay, here's the next set of clips. You're going to love this stuff.
There's a chance when the mission's over that you guys all disappear and go somewhere else. Not going to lie to you, it's been on my mind for a long time. I hope not. I love you guys, but this is a mission I can't say. JL Subs. Holy moly, Batman. We're so proud of you, Dan. We love you, Dan. I love you all in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm just reading through. I know Rumble, we kind of melted it a little bit. Thank you for everything. I want you to know I'm reading it. It was glory bound. We're so proud and excited for you, Dan. Jersey Girl 51, we'll miss you, but feel safer with you in the FBI. Lazarus, I'm proud of you, man. You're going to, Helen, you're going to, exactly where you needed to be. I really hope you guys understand. I got very few people, very few negative comments, but some were a little upset. And I hope you understand why I made the decision I made.
Okay, well, officially, I am offended by the Batman reference. However, I digress. Okay, the begging of his listeners to return because he's doing this for the good of the country. I don't know how people listen to this and think, that he's such a patriot. It's like, if you were such a patriot, you wouldn't have to keep talking about it. It's like people saying, I'm a people person. And clearly they're not. Then he reads the chat. And what's so amazing about that is, so he spends all this time on his podcast, and he's doing all this virtue signaling, and I'm not worthy, and trying to image build and trying to be self-deprecating. Then he reads the chat so that he can revel in the rewards of having virtue signaled. And so then he gets to, digest and take in all the adulation from people. Then he turns around and he sets up everyone who may have a negative comment about his behavior or, not think that he's being professional or even just being an adult about trying to manage his life, which he is not exempling to people, to adults, and very much to his own children when he cannot manage his emotions, which means he never taught that to them about, hey, your emotions are tiny, almost infinitesimal. They're just little signals from the body to help guide you to pay attention to something, but not to live there. I mean, if he never taught that to his daughters, what is he setting them up for? Right? To be a victim, because he's not teaching them about responsibility of choice and accountability of outcomes. And just because you make a choice doesn't mean your choices are done. You have to keep making choices and to take ownership of those choices. And if he's not doing that, then he's just teaching them how to be a victim, which is what he is. And how do you know that? Because he doesn't take ownership of his choices. So him making the comment about, oh, I only received a couple of negative comments is really just kind of signaling to everyone that he's basically beyond reproach and you should not criticize him for being so emotional. This is such a big deal. This is such an honor. I'm such a patriot. I just found it amazing. And then the fact that he gets so angry when people criticize him. And that's part of what that piece is about, oh, there's only been a couple of negative comments, trying to head off people saying negative things about him. Because the fact that he gets so angry when people criticize him, he really is just exposing that he already thinks so little of himself. Thus, his need to image build so that he can build his self-esteem and get his validation outside of himself because he doesn't have that within himself because he thinks so little of himself. See what a circle that is? And when someone points it out, he literally rages. There was so much more onto that podcast. Now that you've listened to all of this, I would encourage you to be brave and go and listen to Monday's podcast. I think it was Monday, the 24th of February, and it's on Rumble, and you can hear it there. And, listen to the whole thing, and you'll hear it continually. You'll hear this virtue signaling that goes on all the time. So what is virtue signaling? I think in a recent interview, Elon Musk said it very nicely that it's people that are more concerned about the appearance of looking good than actually doing good. People that want to look as though they're patriotic or they're very caring or they're moved deeply to things. They want to appear that way rather than actually be that way. There's a difference between people having developed these qualities within them of accountability and responsibility, where they own their own self-interest, and then people using other people and situations to get their needs met that they are lacking. They lack self-esteem, whatever else it is, but they wind up using people. And some people do it inadvertently and they don't realize they're doing it. But somebody as smart as Dan Bongino, I would think at this point, would pretty much know it. And, he'll tell you how smart he is. He'll try to say, oh, nobody cares about, my bona fides. And then he'll tell you about his bona fides. It's a great question to pose is, what would you do in your own self-interest to avoid people finding out who you are? Because that's always the thing that people don't want, is they don't want to be exposed, right? I had a conversation one time with my sister, and what was interesting was in the conversation, we discussed the idea that my mother used to say when we were younger, whatever, oh, I would be mortified if people thought that I didn't love my children. And as we continued the conversation, it's like, okay, so are you mortified because you love your children so much that it would be awful if they thought that you didn't love your children? Or do you not love your children and you'd be afraid that you are exposed, that people found out that you didn't love your children because that is unacceptable, basically in society? Why'd you have kids? It's a very fascinating way to look at people and to look at their behavior. Blessings to my mother. She just celebrated her birthday a little over a week ago. But, it's an interesting phrase when you start to look at it. Are you mortified because they would find out? Or are you mortified because that's how you don't want to appear? And then what will you do in your self-interest to avoid that? Ultimately, this is not about Dan Bongino. What this is about is the people in our lives that look similar to his behavior. And then for us to look at our own behavior. Where do we do this? Where do we use other people in order to feel better about ourselves? Some people do rage at other people to feel better about themselves. They think that, insulting other people and even sometimes doing it in public. What are the choices that we're making to virtue signal, to image build, and where are we self-righteous in that image building that, we've done it all good and, we do no evil, that kind of whatever that shenanigans is. But to just recognize in yourself, recognize in others those qualities where you avoid personal responsibility, you avoid accountability, and in that moment where you're lacking, you do or say something to make up for it, but you're scamming yourself, basically. These people are in your life, so hopefully the quicker you're able to see the signals and avoid it, probably the better. So, belated birthday wishes to my mother. Belated birthday wishes to my niece, Leah. Happy birthday, love. And belated birthday wishes to my friend, John. Happy birthday, John. Hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it's going to help them on their path, their journey to accountability and responsibility. All the good links are down below. Watch out for people that are virtue signaling. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. I will see you here next week. Make it a good week.